right. Okay, so I wanted to share a flyer about the in-person class that we're going to have this semester, which is on April 19th in our dedicated classroom, which is Lindquist Hall 324. So this is a flyer that I made. Like I said, we are going to listen to a couple of different people who are all undergraduate students. Two of them are seniors and one is a freshman, and they're all part of my lab, my research lab, but they're also, two of them are also applied linguistic majors. So Caitlin Hemberger, who's standing next to the Wall of Love in Paris, right there, is an applied linguistics senior. And she will be making a presentation on her senior honors thesis, which is investigating the nature of borrowed French color terms in Congolese Kiswahili. Caitlin actually just presented this work at the Great Plains Honors Council Conference, and she won the John Britt Poster Award for this work. So it's award-winning work. And she will be presenting, it's part of her senior honors thesis. So she will be actually presenting all the data that she collected and, you know, where she is right now with this research. Rory Mata, who's right here looking at the sunflowers. She is actually my FIRE mentee. FIRE is first year research experience in STEM mentee. She is actually not an applied linguistics major. She's an aerospace engineering major who is interested in linguistics. So, you know, I'm hoping to convince her to do a double major in aerospace engineering and applied linguistics, because why not? But for now, she is, you know, she's a freshman, so she still has a couple more years to go. She is actually studying misinformation surrounding COVID-19 in Hispanic communities. So she is interested in, you know, sending out surveys and understanding how misinformation spreads in Spanish, because we know quite a bit about misinformation in English, but we don't as yet know enough about misinformation in other languages. And she chose Spanish because she speaks Spanish. I think she's minoring in Spanish at this point. So that's why she chose Hispanic communities in Wichita. And Raul Rangel Fernandez, who's right here playing the harp, is an applied linguistics senior who's graduating this semester. And he is presenting on his capstone project. I will not read the Spanish, the social views on Nahuatl loanwords in Mexican Spanish. So he is from Mexico. He's a native Spanish speaker from Mexico. And he is interested in, you know, this issue of social imperialism and how it continues in borrowed Spanish words in indigenous Mexican languages, such as Nahuatl. So very different projects, as you can see, but very interesting projects. So, you know, I look forward to seeing you all in person. The dean of my college, Liberal Arts and Sciences, will be in attendance as well. That's what he's told me. So this will also be a chance for you to meet him in person if you have not met him in person. He is also a linguist like me. So, you know, he has a special affinity to linguistic students, if I may say so myself. But, you know, so I just wanted to share that flyer, April 19th. All right, so we are getting into more interesting animals today. So we, like I said, we talked about honeybees, we talked about birds. Now we are getting into more communicative animals, right, to say so. So let's get into dogs. I know that a lot of you have pets, a lot of you have dogs, so you have a lot of thoughts on this, right? And we kind of talked a little bit about it last Thursday as well, but dogs are intelligent beings. They have been domesticated for a very long period of time. They have interacted with humans very closely, right? So they have learned language, or they understand quite a bit more than, you know, the two other species that we looked at, honeybees and birds. Now, one of the famous, or, you know, I think he is called the most famous dog. He is a border collie by the name of Chaser. There's been a lot of work done on him. There are books written on him. He passed away in 2019. But he lived, I think, for 18 to 20 years, something like that, some period of time like that. So, there's been quite a bit of research that's been done on Chaser. We will be watching a couple of videos on Chaser. But Chaser is considered to be a really smart dog because he actually has a way of memorization, and he has a way of understanding nouns. So if even just abstract nouns, right? If you tell him a word like a noun, like ball or toy, house, or something like that, Chaser can actually go and find that thing. Like if you say, go pick up that toy, and like you tell him the toy name, right? Like, go pick up the toy that looks like a caterpillar or something like that. Chaser knows how to go and do that. So he has an idea. He has a concept of what a toy is, but he also has a name for that toy. So he has a very good memory. He has memorization abilities. And he also understands, verbs like take and drop and play. And, a lot of dogs know that. So that's not really unique, but, he can even connect 2-3 words together, like, take the ball and drop it into the basket or something like that, right? But you're asking him to do a little bit more complex kind of, language capabilities. But what was really interesting about Chaser is that he actually understands a novel object. So if you have 5 objects and there are 4 objects that's familiar to Chaser and 1 object that's not familiar to Chaser, he knows that that's the new object. He knows that that object is not part of his repertoire of objects, and that's a new and novel object, right? So that's what we are going to see. But any thoughts on this from your own pet dog or, a dog that you've had in the past? Something similar maybe that your dog does? Not really? Okay.
My dog's not that smart.
Well, maybe you don't have a border collie, Landon. So the border collie is the smartest breed of dogs, among like 130, 150 dog breeds. And Chaser was a border collie. So Olivia, I think you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just trying to think with my dog, like I think we didn't like try to figure out a lot, how smart she was. But like if we said go get a toy, she would get something to chew on. But if we said go get your baby, she would get a stuffed animal, like a specific stuffed animal. So that's the only differentiation that I could tell that she was making. Because like a toy would just be like something plastic or a stick or something like that, versus her baby, which was like this little stuffed dog.
That was hers. That was, she knew that was, that had a name or, some kind of association, right? If you will. Yeah. So you can see, right, depending on what dog breed they belong to, their intelligence kind of is on a scale, right? Some of them more intelligent than others. So, all right. So let's watch a video of Chaser. Okay. I have multiple things opened up here. Let's see. This is the first one. Yes. Okay.
Can respond to 2 or 3 commands, but what if we haven't begun to understand the possibilities of what the animal mind can really do? Our friend, astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, is host of Nova Science Now, and he brings us big news from the frontier.
Walk up.
Meet
Walk up.
Chaser.
Walk up.
Beloved 6-year-old border collie of psychology professor John Pilley.
Good girl.
She was born to live in the Scottish mountains
Chase. Tunnel.
and herd sheep.
Go.
John has taught Chaser to tend an extremely large, if unconventional, herd
Girl.
of 1,000 toys. And she knows the name of every single one of these?
I hope.
I find this hard to believe, so I test Chaser's memory with a random sampling. Chaser, find Inky. Well, she got 1 right. Find Seal. Whoa! 1, 2. In fact, she got all 9 right. But what about a new toy she's never seen or heard the name of? Chaser's never seen Darwin, hasn't even ever heard the name Darwin. So we're going to see if she picks out Darwin by inference. Find Darwin. I have to ask her again. Okay, Chaser. Chaser. Find Darwin.
Darwin! It got Darwin!
She did it. Chaser's never seen that doll before. Yet she settled on the one toy she didn't know.
Girl.
By deduction. It's similar to the way children learn language. But how does Chaser's ability compare with other species? Besides us, chimps and bonobos are the animal kingdom's top linguists, capable of learning sign language, but very slowly. They can solve some sophisticated problems, but they don't always pay close attention to humans.
Come here. When I see my dog wants me to be around. Whereas a bonobo and chimpanzee, they don't need me. They're basically like, hey, you got any food? Can I get any food off of you? They're not interested in making me happy.
Since dogs do like to please us, then humans need to find a way to tap the potential in all of our animals. Okay, put in the tub. And dogs like Chaser are just waiting for us to discover all that they can do.
Smart dog.
And Neil deGrasse Tyson is here with the
We'll watch another video with Neil deGrasse. Oh, it wasn't the same Firefox. What were you about that? It's a little bit longer.
It's part of our pop culture to give animals human personalities and talents. Movies and cartoons are filled with talking creatures who basically act like people, but they've got feathers or fur, from Donald Duck to Alvin and the Chipmunks. And when it comes to our own pets, it's awfully tempting to imagine that they have human thoughts and feelings. But researchers have always been skeptical about animal intelligence. After all, we humans speak and write, build spaceships, and solve puzzles. Yet animals, well, they're just not that accomplished. Yet recently, as we test more animals and try to reveal the way they think, we've come up with some surprising results. And these days, one of our star pupils is the one animal who may know us the best.
She's a wonderful little dog. She is something special. She's really smart, and we have this connection.
She is extremely intelligent. I think that she is very much like a person.
I think Tucker understands me more than anyone else.
Plenty of dog owners have always said their dogs were smart. But animal researchers are just starting to catch on.
1, 2, 3.
New discoveries are showing that our best friend is smarter than they ever thought.
Good job.
And behind those big brown eyes lies a brain that resembles ours in ways we never imagined.
Here.
John Tilley, a chipper 82-year-old,
Come back, hurry.
started working with dogs as a psychology professor.
Walk up.
Now, he's got one of the smartest dogs around.
Come on, girl.
And I've come to check out what she can do. Good girl. Chaser is a 6-year-old female border collie, a breed famously skilled at herding sheep.
She was born to live in the Scottish mountains
Chase. Tunnel.
and herd sheep.
Go. There.
Be a shepherd.
John has taught Chaser to tend an extremely large herd.
That was a sheep.
But there are no real sheep in it.
I can't.
Chaser's herd is made up of toys. About 1,000 of them. And she knows the name of every single one of these?
I hope.
Sailor. John has assigned a name to each one.
Never forget. Oh, because it's
And taught those names to Chaser.
an elephant.
Okay.
She has about 12 elephants.
Apparently, sometimes John ran out of stuffed animals.
Uh-oh, here's a pair of my shorts.
Oh my God.
No, that's one of her toys.
John claims that Chaser remembers the name of every single object in the pile. Personally, I find that hard to believe. I don't have time to test memory on 1,000 names, but I will test her on a random sample. John and Chaser go into the house so they can't see. So I'm going to get a handful of toys out of this pile and see if Chaser can identify them indoors. With John and Chaser out of the room, I lay some of the toys out behind the couch. Lover. Now it's time to see if Chaser really remembers their names. All ready for Chaser? Come on, Chaser. Come to Neil. Okay, come on down. Chaser, find Inky. Well, she got one right. Find Seal. Whoa! And that one too. Okay, ready, Chaser? Now, you might be wondering what's going on behind the couch. Like, is John handing her the toys? Find Crawdad. Let's check our hidden camera. Find Sugar. I asked Chaser to find 9 toys, and she got every single one right. And remember, I picked the toys randomly from this huge pile. Neither John nor Chaser saw which ones I picked. On multiple trials with John and others, Chaser consistently aces her test. There's 1,000 toys here. That doesn't, like, spook you? It makes me happy.
These dogs have super memories. On your mark, get set, go! Over.
Chaser and other border collies like her have shown they can remember hundreds of words and what they represent.
Cable, reverse. In, out, in.
What's more, they can learn these new words very quickly.
Over. Table chase, table. Good girl.
So, how does this ability compare with other species? Well, besides us, chimps and bonobos are the animal kingdom's top linguists, capable of learning sign language, but very slowly. There are tests where dogs perform much better than apes. Consider this simple task. By the age of 12 to 18 months, a human baby knows to look or go where a grown-up points.
What do you think? This is something that little children do right when they start to acquire language.
Brian Hare is a primate researcher who tried this experiment with some of...
Okay, you know where I'm going in this lecture video. We're going to get into primates, but not yet. Let's discuss the video that we just saw. So what do you think? How intelligent is Chaser? Pretty intelligent, right? I mean, that's incredible, right? 1,000 toys, like, that's crazy, right? I mean, she really has an exceptional memory. There's no doubt about that, right? Because it sometimes it's difficult for humans to remember so many names as well, right? I mean, especially toys that look really similar, or, like a huge pile of toys such as Chaser's toys. But, what is incredible is that she had that novel, she deduced that this was a new toy, and this was what Neil deGrasse was referring to when he said Darwin, because she had never seen that toy before, right? And that inference ability is quite remarkable, I think, because that's just how kids behave. I mean, children have that ability when they are learning to use language and they're learning to understand the world around them. And that's exactly what she was using, Chaser was using as well. So I think that was actually quite remarkable. Any other thoughts on the video that you just saw? No? Okay. The next, I shouldn't have, I'm sorry, I'm keeping on switching. It's all here in Firefox, but okay. So let's look at this video where we're not talking about Chaser now, but just dogs in general and how they have different gestures for different emotions and different, actions. And this is actually a National Geographic article that you can read later. Okay. Are some of these referential gestures familiar to dog owners? Yeah? Do any of your dogs have any other referential gestures that you can think of? This seems like the most obvious ones, right? Like food, play with me, tickle me, take me outside. Anything else? How about when they want to say that they're tired or, sleepy, or I want to rest, like don't play with me, right? How do you think dogs use negation?
Mine just walks into another room and like lies down.
Okay, like go away from you, right? Like walk away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what mine does too, is she just leaves the room.
Okay, so that's like don't engage with me, leave me alone, like let me be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think my dog has that in her vocabulary.
She doesn't want to leave you alone.
She never wants to be away from me.
Okay, maybe do you have another room that she can walk into?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
there's
because
plenty of rooms.
okay, because sometimes that could be a limitation too, right? I mean, where would she walk away into, right? But okay, she really likes you, London. Okay, so I thought that was really nice that they have all these dog gestures and stuff. Artificial intelligence is really big, as you know, and there's been a lot of push for creating these kind of artificial intelligence tools and technology to understand animal communication. So this is a startup that actually was working on artificial intelligence for dog communication. But I had this website from maybe last year, but then I went to check if they're still around, and I don't believe they are. I don't know what happened to them. Maybe they just didn't get money or funding or something like that. But I checked the website. The website still exists, but I cannot see any content on the website. So I'm assuming that they didn't get funding. But there's a lot of push towards creating artificial intelligence technologies for non-human communication, right? So artificial intelligence is still a baby. We still don't understand how fully well it can be used, especially in domains such as animal communication. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is something else like this coming up in the future, right? So keep your eyes open for something like that. But now I thought we could, using artificial technology, people have been studying whether sheep look sad or happy. So I thought that we could actually do the test ourselves and guess if the sheep that we see in this on this page are actually sad or happy. Hold on, I need to open it up. Oh no, I don't want to see Neil deGrasse Tyson again. And I just happen to have lost the PowerPoint presentation. There it is. Okay. Let's see. Anybody who has a sheep as a pet? No? Okay. So this is the artificial intelligence thing that I was talking about for dog communication. It's called a pet translator, right? They're starting with dogs because it's easier, because we already have a lot of research on dogs. And prairie dogs as well. There's a lot of communication on prairie dogs. There's a lot of people working on prairie dogs in Wichita State as well. Not necessarily the linguistic aspect, but that would be a really cool interdisciplinary project, you know, to kind of work with biologists and other, you know, researchers who are working with prairie dogs at Wichita State and kind of, you know, talk about the linguistic aspects of this. But this is Dr. Kon Slobochikov, who's a biology professor at Northern Arizona University, and he's the one who founded the company Zoolingua. But like I said, I can't find any more information about them. But okay, so are you ready for your quiz on telling if sheep look sad or happy? Yeah. Okay, we will test us, and then if we can do well on this, probably an AI system can do okay on it, right? So we'll see. Okay, so scientists are developing artificial intelligence systems that monitor sheep for 6 signs of pain that could indicate sickness. The systems have seen lots of sheep photos, right? So that's part of machine learning, part of artificial intelligence. You test the machine on a lot of different images, a lot of different, if it's linguistic models and words and sentences and all that, and then you let the machine learn, right? So they have been taught, the machine has been taught to detect 5 often extremely subtle pain indicators: narrowed eyes, tight cheeks, ears down, lips pulled down and back, and nostrils shaped more like a V than a U. Okay, so now these are the things that you need to keep in mind when I show you these photos. All right, now how good are you at spotting a sad sheep? Let's take the quiz. Is this sheep happy or sad?
Sad.
Sad.
Sad. Okay. Okay. Is that the majority answer? Shall we see if you're right? Correct. This sheep is actually in pain. The eyes are partially closed, the ears are down and rotated toward the floor. The mouth area is tense with the smile lost, and the muscle that runs along the jaw is showing tension. Good job. This sheep is happy or sad? Olivia says sad.
So
Trinity says sad.
I don't see any like tension in the mouth.
Okay. So do you think that's a smile then? A slight smile?
I'm gonna say happy.
Okay. I still want a majority answer. So right now the majority is saying sad. Anybody else who thinks it's happy? I need more answers, guys. I'm not going to choose an answer unless I have a majority answer. So you can put it in chat if you don't want to speak. You guys don't have thoughts on whether the sheep is happy or sad? What? I know it's early morning on, Tuesday. Okay, Megan says it's happy. Now we're even on happy and sad. So I still need somebody to break the tie. Anybody else? Okay. Happy. Okay, let's go for happy. Ephraim says happy too. The sheep is in pain, right? So Olivia and Trinity, you are absolutely right. eye is partially closed. The smile is still partially present. So I think Landon, that's kind of where you know, kind of went in the happy direction. But the chin and the nostrils are tense. So even though, you know, maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, the sheep is not on a 5, maybe the sheep is like on a 2 or something like that, right? So, all right. What about this sheep? It gets harder, right? I mean, when I did it for the first time, I was like, what the hell? I cannot tell.
Happy.
Happy? Olivia agrees too.
I think he's sad.
Okay. Let's go with happy because I have 2 happy answers. That sheep is happy. Eyes are open, ears are forward in an alert position, right? Right there. And there's some tension in the cheek area, but the corner of the mouth is turned up and the nostrils are more rounded in shape. But I cannot see the more, honestly, I cannot see the smile, to be very honest with you, compared to the last photo, but you know, yeah. What about this one? This one looks to me like it's sleeping. I would say the sheep is sleeping, but we only have 2 choices, happy or sad.
I think that's a happy sheep.
I
Okay.
agree.
Happy sheep? Okay. No, Olivia was right. Olivia, you're pretty good at it. The eye is completely closed and the ears are down and rotated toward the floor. The mouth area is tense with the smile lost and the nostrils are square rather than rounded. I'm like, sure, if you tell me the nostrils are square than rounded, I believe you, but you know, I honestly cannot see it as square and not rounded, but I'm just pretty bad at understanding sheep, I guess. Okay, finally, one sheep that's open but happy.
That's
Okay.
a happy sheep.
That's a happy sheep. That's right. So I know we're happy to end on a positive note, but you can see, right? I mean, for artificial intelligence algorithms, how hard is this? This is so hard for human beings, right? I mean, without, you know, any knowledge about sheeps. I mean, I've not grown up with sheeps and I've not seen sheeps, you know, I don't see sheeps in my daily life, but it's just so hard, I think, right? For human beings to discriminate whether somebody is happy or whether sheep is happy or sad. Imagine how hard this is going to be for artificial intelligence algorithms. Now, I want to imagine, you know, if you have like a bot, like an Alexa or Siri or something that you talk to on a regular basis at home or, you know, on your commute to work or something like that. How difficult is it for these kind of artificial intelligence systems to understand human language? Right? I mean, it's the same kind of discriminatory issue, right? I mean, Alexa is pretty good these days because there's a lot of money that's being pumped into, you know, getting state-of-the-art technologies with respect to speech bots, but it's still not there yet. You see what I'm saying? Like, you know, pretty much I want to say like 95% of the time Alexa understands what I'm saying, but I don't speak American English, right? And that's a big barrier for Alexa because Alexa is trained on American English, right? Obviously they are, you know, they want that diversity, so they are training Alexa on other languages and other varieties of English as well. But you can see, right, with like a Southern accent or a different accent that's not considered to be like a standard English variety, how it's just going to break down, right? I mean, there are times when I've asked Alexa something and she will do something completely random and my daughter finds it hilarious, right? Because she's born and brought up here, so she speaks American. Her accent is that of, you know, like you guys, it's standard American English. So she always finds it hilarious. She's like, what is mommy saying? What's Alexa doing? Like, it's just, you know, it's a hilarious time in my household. But you know, my take on artificial intelligence and bots is that we still have a long way to go when it comes to human language. You know, not even there yet with animal communication, right? Not even there with human language. So forget animal communication, right? A lot of work that still needs to be done. If you're interested in doing that, do the computational linguistics track in the applied linguistics major. That's precisely the reason why I created that track. For students who are interested in getting into that really hot field right now of computer science interfacing with linguistics, right? A lot of work that needs to be done in that area, and very well-paying jobs, if I may say so myself, right? Triple or 4 times of what I'm earning at Wichita State, if you want to know. So that doesn't mean I'm discouraging any of you from becoming a professor. Very noble cause, very noble activity, but not really in there for the money, okay? I will stop with my rant and get into the last animal species that I want to talk about for animal communication, primate communication. All right. So you kind of saw a little bit in the Neil deGrasse video, about primate communication, but primates are, one of the most intelligent species on the planet after human beings, right? I mean, we evolved from primates, so it's not really surprising that monkeys, especially certain breeds of monkeys, are really intelligent and can pick up some forms of communication, such as sign language, for example. So when you look at animal communication among the primates, among the monkeys, you can see that monkeys have very species dependent calls, just like bird calls, right? How different species of birds have different kinds of bird calls associated with that species. It's the same thing for monkeys. There are certain calls that are species dependent. So chimpanzees have certain calls versus orangutans and bonobos and lemur, they're all different according to the species. The primate communication still lack displacement, so they cannot talk about the past and the future, maybe just the immediate past and the immediate future, but not really in terms of, months or years, displaced such as human language. And they lack productivity, so they cannot really produce, new words or create new words if they want to talk about something new in their environment. So it's not really productive the same way as human communication. So what are some of the functions of primate communication? What kind of signals, what kind of gestures do they actually use? Well, one of the main gestures that they actually use is to mark territory, right? I mean, pretty basic, if you ask me, for any animal species. Primate communication, one of the classic communication gestures, communication signals, is to mark and announce territory so that other species do not invade that particular area. Warning signs, again, if there's a predator, if there's a human being or a bigger animal around, like a tiger or a lion or something, they have a lot of calls that are warning signs for the species. So that's another function of their communication. And then they also have different socializing abilities. So they can actually communicate whether they are happy or sad or angry, all that kind of socializing kind of calls. So I have a video here with some calls that illustrate a couple of the signs that they have. That up really quickly. All right. Two very different signs, if you ask me, right? Two different species, it's two different, same breed, but two different kinds of lemurs as well, right? But very different calls. Oh, wait, I think another video opened up. Oh, we can watch this video too. Hold on. This is also continuing with lemurs. There we are. Okay. Did you know that there were different kinds of lemurs like that? I did not until I, started researching for this class. I was like, what? Oh my God. There's so many of them and they're also different, right? But have you seen this video before or heard of lemur calls before? But it's just, you can think of these calls as a vocabulary of lemurs, right? Limited vocabulary, of course, but still, I think substantially enough for them to communicate all that they want to communicate in their environment, right? And that's, I think, how I want you to think of animal communication, especially for primates, because that's all they want to do, right? They want to communicate those 10 things that they want to communicate, right? But what is the connection between primates and human language? Can you have a talking chimpanzee or a talking orangutan, or can you teach a monkey to speak, in short? What do you think? Has anybody tried to teach a monkey to speak?
I'm sure they have, like all those linguists who do primate studies. I think if they would be able to speak, they would have figured out how by now. That's just
okay. Anybody else?
Isn't there like a famous one? I don't know if it's Coca or something that they taught sign language to.
Yes.
And like she caught it on, which I think doesn't necessarily mean that they're not capable of speech, because you can teach babies sign language before they can start talking.
Right. Exactly.
So that's language. So like I just wanted to say that as like, I'm not saying that primates language is like below ours, because like babies can learn how to do sign language before they're capable of actually producing sound.
Right. I mean, my 1.5-year-old, he has started to speak a lot more now, because he's at that stage where he can use a lot more words. So he has the word more, but he still uses this and the word. So he does this and says more, right? Like, because he could do more as a sign language before he could say the word more. But even though he can produce the word more, he has not let go of the sign language. So now he does both together. And I'm like, you're really showing me, that's quite emphatic, but that it's yeah, I can totally see Niall's point there with, baby sign language and language. Landon, I think you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to mention Coco as well, and I've done some independent research on this. I don't think that they can speak like us, because I like their musculature and their facial structure is different. Like we evolved specifically to do this. But I mean, sign language, maybe.
Right. Yes. So you all know about Coco. That's good because that's where I was going to next. So Washoe and Coco are actually the two famous primates that have been looked at by, linguists and anthropologists and researchers. And they, again, the question of whether they actually learn the sign language, like, is it sign language? What form of sign language is this? Is debatable. So I want to keep that debate aside, right? I mean, it's controversial. I don't want to get into that controversy. But the fact is that they could learn some of these signs and sign back to you and tell them tell you what they wanted. So, I'm interpreting sign language in a very fluid, kind of manner. And I'm not really saying it's sign language like American Sign Language, for example. But they could actually combine different signs together as well. So very similar to, combining hi, mommy, right? Or bye, daddy, give ball, right? Or take ball. So those kind of, very baby kind of stages, like 2-word stage, which is where my 1.5-year-old is at right now, for example. So Washoe is actually the first chimpanzee to be taught sign language, and the period that these experiments were conducted on Washoe was between 1965 to 1972. So this, I think, is the heydays of animal communication and animal experimentation, because linguistics, the kind of linguistics that we know, like the formal modern kind of linguistics, I want to say started around 1950s, right? With Noam Chomsky. There was structural linguistics before that. There were behavioral linguistics before that, but those are different schools of thought, right? And the kind of linguistics that we do today is very different from behavioralism and structuralism. And so I want to say that we made a lot of advances in linguistics starting in the 1950s. So by the time we got into the late 60s, early 70s, people really wanted to understand animal communication, because when you talk about language, you want to understand human language and you want to understand animal language and how different or how similar they are, right? Washoe was, pretty advanced for a chimpanzee. She could actually recognize a lot of signs, not really able to produce, as many signs as she could actually recognize them. There's always this divide that we talk about, competence versus performance in language. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those terms. If you've done, another linguistic class, you might be familiar with that terminology, but let me just put it here. The difference between competence and performance is the fact that we are all competent beings. We are all intelligent human beings. We all have intelligence, right? We are all capable of being our best, but we don't always perform our best, right? Today in the morning, you might not have had breakfast. So right now, all that you can think of is eating your lunch, maybe because you're hungry, right? So at that point, you are not 100% here focused to, hearing what I'm saying, right? Focused and listening to what I'm saying. You're distracted. You're thinking about all the other things that you have to do today, the assignment that is due today, right? Your performance is not the same as your competence. That's the same thing that we talk about when we talk about recognition versus production. Human babies, by the time they are 8 months, 9 months, can understand everything that you say to them, right? I mean, not everything in the world. That would be crazy. But, if they have a understanding of all the words that you use to them, all the things that they see in their surroundings, but they're not able to produce any of that language until they are 1.5 to 2 years old, right? So competence always precedes performance, right? Comprehension always precedes production. So, very often you would also hear comprehension versus production. You will actually see this difference when you come to the LING Fest on April 19th and listen to Caitlin's talk, where she talks about comprehension versus production and why we do, when we do experiments on human subjects and human participants, so she's been working with Swahili refugees from Congo, and she's been conducting both comprehension studies and production studies, because you can always see there's a lag between comprehension and production. So that's why this, I think this is important to keep in mind with animal communication as well. Okay, so let's look at a video of Washo and Coco. Oh my God, that video is unavailable. Why is that unavailable? Okay. Let me see if I can find another video. There's a Coco video. I don't know why they've taken off the Washo video. Okay, maybe this. Okay, yeah, I think that video should work. Here we go.
Anyone concerned with the study of human nature and human capacities must somehow come to grips with the fact that all normal humans acquire language, whereas acquisition of even its barest rudiments is quite beyond the capacities of an otherwise intelligent ape. Chomsky, 1968.
It has never been in doubt, since the time of Aristotle, that language is a characteristically human accomplishment, and that some of the capacities which it demands are either absent in other animals or are present only in the most rudimentary form. Bernowski and Bellucci, 1970.
Language is also the most diagnostic single trait of man. All normal men have language. No other now living organisms do. Lobzhansky, 1972.
We'd like to introduce you to Washo. Washo is a very special chimpanzee.
What? Roger, give me food, more feed. Ask politely. Please give me. Okay.
Washo may be the first chimpanzee to have learned a human language. Her words are not in her voice, but in her hands. She's learned sign language. She has a vocabulary. She chains words together, usually in the appropriate order. She plays games with the words, and sometimes invents new ones. She talks to herself and asks questions of her human companions. If all this is language, she will have confounded some of the world's leading scientists, and she will have rumbled the foundations of the theory that man, because of his language, is unique. Washo was born wild in Africa. She was 10 months old when she came to America and was given the name of the county surrounding Reno, Nevada. She came here in 1966, and for more than 4 years, she was brought up in the suburban home of two scientists. Dr. Alan Gardner is a professor of psychology at the University of Nevada at Reno. Dr. Trixie Gardner, his wife, is also a professor in psychology at the university. The chimpanzee they have with them today is Moja, and she's part of a new project involving several chimpanzees. This is the house where Washo lived. The new chimpanzees will be brought up in the same way the Washo was, almost as a human child. It's not very easy raising animals as lively and sociable as chimpanzees in your own home. They require constant attention, even more than children, 24 hours a day. Susan Nichols was one of the research assistants who worked with Washo. For the purposes of the experiment, English was not spoken, only American Sign Language. The language used by many deaf people was used in the presence of the chimpanzee. So when Washo played in this yard and lived in this trailer, she was surrounded all the time by signs made by humans with their hands. The natural noises of chimps, various grunts and hoots, were made by humans, but signing was the only form of linguistic communication used. It was hoped that a chimpanzee might simply pick up the signs, the way deaf children do. The garage of the house was converted into a playroom, a laboratory, and a film studio. Alan Gardner decided at the beginning of the project with Washoe that one of the most appropriate ways to record any signs that Washoe might acquire would be on film. As often as possible, for 4 years, the Gardners filmed as many events as they could. The film is in black and white, and no sound was recorded as sound does not play a part in sign language. The work was full of surprises, so it's hard to know just when to start the camera running. A response to signs could come at any time, and anyway, sooner or later, the cameraman himself becomes part of the action. Why did they do it? Why should two comparative psychologists, one an expert on spiders, the other on rats, suddenly want to start teaching sign language to a chimpanzee?
Well, we thought about it for a long time, actually. Among comparative psychologists, this is a classical problem. We always thought that one day somebody would find a good technique for accomplishing this, that is, teaching a form of human language to an animal. And not just a conditioning of this name for that thing, but carrying on conversations with an animal the way you and I carry on conversations with each other. Before we started Project Washoe, there had been several attempts to teach chimpanzees to use a form of vocal language, such as English or Russian. In particular, the studies of the Kellogg's and the Hayes.
Keith and Kathy Hayes raised Vicky in their own home in the 1940s. There were other studies, but this was the most successful. It began with individual sounds, like consonants.
Do this, Vicky. Another sound resembles the letter K. Vicky, sit up, girl. Come on. Do this. Vicky has to hold her hand over her nose. Another of her sounds resembles the letter T. Vicky, do this. Good girl.
It was found difficult to teach vowel sounds, and some of the consonants, like M, required holding her lips in position. Notice the bodily convulsions and great difficulty that Vicky has doing this. After 3 years, the grand total of words was 4: Papa, Mama, cup, and up.
Vicky, sing on it.
Notice that Vicky now puts her own finger on her lips. Usually the words were accompanied by gestures.
Now, who am I? Papa. Sing with this one. Sing. Papa. That's right.
This is Mama. And this is cup.
At the end of the Hayes study, there are only 2 conclusions possible. Either the chimpanzee could not use the form of human language, or the Hayes had chosen the wrong medium of communication.
It's very apparent from both from laboratory observations and from reports of chimpanzee behavior in the wild that this is a species that can do almost anything with their hands and can learn to do almost anything with their hands. So that a language that was dependent not on vocalization, which is inappropriate to the species, but on gesture would be suitable to chimpanzees.
Sign language, particularly important that sign language is a natural language spoken by a large community of human beings. That way we have children who are learning sign language, especially the deaf children of deaf parents, teachers who are familiar with children who are learning sign language. And this permitted us to compare our chimpanzees to a human population learning sign language under what might have been similar conditions.
The Gardners had visitors from time to time, and many were fluent signers, either from the deaf community itself or people who had worked closely with sign language. When the experiment with Washoe started, some doubts were expressed as to whether sign language could be counted as a genuine language, even if Washoe did manage to acquire some signs. Louis Fant is one such visitor. He's the hearing son of deaf parents. He worked for many years with the National Theater of the Deaf and is one of the foremost teachers and interpreters of sign language. He's convinced that it's just as good as any other language.
Yes, Amazon, American Sign Language, is complex. It is as complex as any other spoken language, and it is capable of expressing the same subtleties and nuances as any spoken language can. Signs in American Sign Language do not stand for words, but rather for ideas, for concepts. So therefore, you don't have one sign for every word. You have a sign that stands for an idea, which can be translated by many different words. And this is another characteristic of any language. When you go from Spanish or French or German into English, sometimes one word in that language will require 5 words in this language in order to get a translation. But sign language does all of these things. It has these as characteristics of it.
We used only Amazon in Washer's presence because if we had mixed our media, if we had attempted to sign and speak simultaneously, it would have been a gross distortion of sign language. Sign language has a structure that's quite different from English. Often many signs are used to translate a single English word and vice versa. And if we had signed and spoken simultaneously, would have produced a very poor model of the language that Washer was to acquire.
Okay,
And so-
this is a rather long video. I actually had a shorter video, but that video is unavailable. But what do you think of sign language and what do you think of Wiki? Let's start with Wiki because I think Wiki was taught spoken language and not sign language, right? What do you think of that?
It was an interesting experiment, and I find it rather fascinating that some of the easiest words for humans to say, mama and papa, were so difficult for a chimpanzee. Like they literally had to like hold their mouth in the right position.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I have to tell you, these studies happened when there was no body, kind of mandating that ethical, there should be ethical ways of doing things with animals. That kind of happened later. So, this kind of happened in 1940s when, I think things were a little bit different in America at that point, especially with science and experiments involving human subjects as well as animals, right? So, if anybody's wondering, like, why was that chimpanzee dressed up in like a frock and, dress and all that, like those kind of things are, I think a lot more strict with respect to experiments and all that. But yeah, it looked extremely difficult for her to say those words, right? It looked like a pain actually to say those words. So maybe it is true then that, sign language is a easier medium of communication, right? To use the words that they use. So what about sign language? I know a lot of you actually sign and, you've learned sign language. How easy or difficult is it for an animal to learn sign language as opposed to human language, like spoken language?
What I was wondering about is, I know like some of the, like they were doing food and more and all that kind of stuff, but I wonder if the monkeys would be able to finger spell because that's more of a fine-tuned skill. And I mean, that's hard to learn even being a human. So I wonder if that's something they would be capable of doing.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that.
That's a thing, like even humans find finger spelling difficult. Like I know like kids who are brought up learning sign language, finger spelling is like one of the last things that they ever produce. And like until that point, there's just a lot of things that they are not saying because finger spelling is very difficult. I mean, it requires knowledge of writing and a natural ability to like put sequences of things together to make something that doesn't have anything to do with the parts in between.
Right.
It's a very difficult skill.
Do you know, Landon, of studies that have looked at acquisition of finger spelling in deaf children?
I don't think I've read any studies on it.
Okay.
I just know that from my sign language instructor.
Okay, because that's an area that I'm not familiar with at all as to what research is happening in that area. But I would, if you want to learn more, Olivia and Landon, that would be where I would start, right? Look at acquisition studies of sign language of ASL with deaf children, and kind of look at what age do they actually learn finger spelling, and there should be a range, right? I mean, say 6 to 8 or something like that. And then that would be the number of years that you would have to work with a chimpanzee to get to that stage. Now, Washoe, as I said, was 1965 to 1972. So if you're talking about getting to finger spelling at 8 years for a human child, that would look like more like 10 years for Washoe, right? Or Coco. So my hunch is that we haven't had that many years with a chimp, which is why we probably haven't got to the level of finger spelling, Olivia. But that's my best hunch, because like I said, this is not an area that I'm familiar with at all. So yeah. But it's interesting that, we, even in 2022, we are still debating whether ASL is actually a real language or not. You see what I'm saying? Like, this video was shot in like the 1970s, right? Where I understand at that point that things were still new. ASL was still, people didn't have a lot of awareness at that point. But we're in 2022 now, and I still hear debates about people asking whether ASL is a genuine language and why should we teach ASL to deaf children. And like, I'm like, we're in 2022. This debate should not be happening. Like, like this. It annoys me so much that 50, 60 years, from 1970, we're still debating the same old. I'm on record, so I will not use that word, but it bothers me a lot. So I really think what's missing from the society is awareness, awareness of a lot of these issues that concern, the deaf community. And I've heard a lot of discussions about this, right? Actually, in fact, just yesterday on Twitter, I saw this. There's a lot of British Sign Language protests and things that are going around in UK and London, if you've been following the news. So that's BSL, British Sign Language, very different sign language from ASL, but it has its own grammar and vocabulary and all that, just like different languages. But I heard on Twitter the other day that somebody on the news channel in London had said that there was an interpreter, and that interpreter interpreted BSL to you, and somebody who's part of the deaf community, the BSL deaf community, said, no, let's rewind. You needed the interpreter to understand what that BSL sign meant, because you do not speak BSL, right? The interpreter is for you, not for them, right? Because they were signing in BSL, and so yeah, so it's a volatile issue, but the fact of the matter is that ASL and BSL and the 200 other sign languages that exist in the world are languages in its own respect. They just don't have the spoken, form associated with spoken language. But apart from that, it's completely genuine languages. We should not be debating about that. Okay, that's my take on it. But we digress. Okay, so the second primate study is on a chimpanzee called Nim Chimpsky, right? And you can see there's a play on words right there, on Noam Chomsky, right? Nim Chimpsky. And Nim Chimpsky, again, was taught ASL, sign language, but very often, what Nim Chimpsky would do was to just repeat the sign that the monkey was taught. There was no initiation of conversation from the chimpanzee itself, and there was absolutely no evidence of grammar, though this is the longest utterance of Nim Chimpsky: give orange me, give eat orange me, eat orange. So this is all sign language, not words. But as you can see, this is a pretty long utterance in sign language for a chimpanzee, right? So there's some amount of creativity in terms of using the same sign over and over and over again to probably get what the chimpanzee wanted. But apart from that, there was really no evidence of grammar. There was, yeah. Okay, so we are almost out of time. So since most of you know about Coco, I'm not gonna show you this video on Coco. I'll just put it in the chat so that you can watch that by yourself. And there's also another chimpanzee called Lana, who also, I will put the video in the chat so that you can watch that. And then, I had some discussion questions there about Lana's video, but you can watch the video at home and then answer these two questions. Why are random symbols used for Lana, and how well does Lana speak in quotations? And what should we make of Lana's repetition? So I'm gonna kind of leave you with this slide, primates in human language. What we can kind of learn from primate communication is that probably they are the most advanced of species with respect to learning human language. Yes, Landon.
You posted the same link twice.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry about that. Let's see, maybe that would solve that. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Landon. But yet, there are
A lot of videos unavailable.
Oh, really? I don't know why the videos on primates are unavailable. Like it's
YouTube doesn't like primates.
It's not like primates, exactly. I mean, we didn't have issues with dogs and honeybees, etc. But maybe they just don't want the monkeys to take over the world. But if you search Lana video, primate human language or something like that, I'm sure something would show up. But essentially you get the idea, right? It's the same kind of Washoe video. I will put that Washoe video here so that maybe that would be something that you could watch, because it had a lot more minutes that we couldn't watch here. That's the Washoe video. Okay, so there's also this Kansi the bonobo, which is can primates learn syntax? And I can put that. Hopefully, this video is not unavailable as well. And so we'll come back to this on Thursday's lecture as well. But we started with design features, and I said I will come back to it towards the end of animal communication. We looked at bees, we looked at birds, we looked at non-human primates, and dogs. And this is, I think, what we have been finding, right? That arbitrariness, yes, pretty much, all the signs or the animal communication gestures we've looked at are pretty arbitrary. Displacement, well, bees can show limited displacement, especially when they want to show you the dance. And humans are also showing displacement, but I think it's a no for birds and no for non-human primates. Creativity, there's limited creativity for birds. Bird songs are creative because it's different for each species. Non-human primates, we really don't know whether they're creative, but possibly they're creative. No duality of expression for any of the gestures, and no grammaticality for any of the gestures. And with cultural transmission, highly limited, and maybe is, I think, our best guess at this point. So I'm going to leave you with that. Any questions on dogs or primate or chimpanzees or any of the content we talked about today?
Were they saying that dogs most likely have the most comprehension, but then the primates were able to reproduce like more human language with the signs? Because it seems like the dogs could understand like just a ton of commands. So is that kind of like the gist of it?
Yes. Yeah. So going back to what the psychologist said in the Washoe video that we saw, he was calling it coordinated communication, right? Where you ask the dog to coordinate a toy with a word. So it's like a one-on-one mapping, if you will, right? So there's a lot of memorization to play. I mean, border collies are shepherd herding dogs. So, they kind of have a pretty high memory capacity compared to other dogs. So that's coordination, one-on-one coordination. But with ASL and with, chimpanzees, it's basically a little bit different because you're teaching them to produce certain signs and communicate with you, like have a conversation with you, right? So that's the really big difference between dogs and other non-human primates. Yep. Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, sounds great. I will see you on Thursday then. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.